Today, I'm speaking with Mark Goldade, who is a real estate professional in Winnipeg. And we have partnered with him recently, just about a month ago in March, to set up his Follow Boss account. And we're going to be talking about his real estate strategy, everything that he's implemented recently to help transform his real estate business just in the past few months and year. Mark, thank you for joining me and for taking the time to do this conversation. Before we dive into the techie stuff, I would first love to learn a little bit about your story. How did you originally join the real estate industry? I heard a little bit, and it sounds very interesting.
Well, first, thanks for having me on here, Elena. My history with real estate is pretty short, I'll be honest. I've been a licensed realtor for 3 years, and my reason for getting into the industry was I served 14 years in the Air Force, and I was injured to the point where I was no longer retained as a military member. So I had to figure out what to do with my life. Of course, I was discharged on a full medical pension. So I looked at my grandfather, who, when he finished World War II and came back to Canada, he became a realtor. His son, when he finished his military service, became a realtor. And then I had an associate of mine who retired from the Canadian Armed Forces, and he pulled me aside and said, have a look at this. So he brought me into Coldwell Banker, showed me around, and next thing you know, I was taking the course and get myself licensed.
There you go. I love it. So after you join, and thank you for your service. And so where did you everyone so far I've talked to remembers their very first transaction. Who was your first transaction with?
My first transaction was with somebody by the name of Greg. For privacy reasons, we won't get into too much, but Greg was somebody that I served with in the Canadian Armed Forces. He was an officer. I was a non-commissioned member. And him and I had a great rapport in my time in service. So he approached me and said, hey, you're a realtor now. I need to buy a home. Can you help me? And first I was like, oh, my first deal, my first client. And I was all over it. So we went out, we viewed homes, we had some hits, some misses, and eventually we found the property they liked. So at that point, we put in an offer, we had a little back and forth, and we were successful. It was quite rewarding and made me feel really good about the whole situation.
So now that you've been in the business for 3 years, starting from that first deal to 2025, how would you say that your business model has changed?
Drastically. I went from strictly sphere of influence and hoping I could find prospects with no idea how to prospect. I had this little window of opportunity with military members knowing the whole process and what their timeline was, but that's only a small portion of the year. So I was like, how am I going to get any business beyond that? So I had to really branch out. And knocking on doors wasn't really my thing at the time. I didn't know how, I didn't know what to say. I just didn't have the systems in place. So now by getting into having proper systems and structure has made a huge, huge difference in how I operate.
That's great. And we'll definitely dive into that because I want to learn more of what systems and structure means because I know that means different things to different people. Could you share a little bit about where you get your business from now that you transition away from your sphere and your personal relationships? Where do you get your business from today?
Well, I haven't transitioned away from that. My sphere is still a massive part of my business and always will be. Personal relationships are probably the most important thing in this business.
Mm-hmm.
But I've gone from using the cookie cutter system that's provided by Coldwell Banker,
Mm-hmm.
which is great for most agents, just didn't fit my needs, moving into a more functional and robust CRM like Follow Up Boss.
Mm-hmm.
And then taking that a step further and having you build out the system, which made a world of difference. So I take all of that. events, I'll go out and pay to have a booth at a home and garden show and sit there and greet people all day and shake hands and pass out business cards and talk about their wants and needs. I have an arrangement with a local financial institution where every Monday I go and sit in the financial institution from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and the mortgage broker is in the office next to me. So we do back and forth to give valuations and work on new clients. So my sphere of where I'm finding clients has evolved, continues to, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I should have worded that better and not transition, but expanded upon. I think this is a better way to put it. So let's dive into technology. What do you use to support your business
A
today?
lot. I'm a little more tech forward than most people I know. I actually built a server in my own house, not only for home entertainment, but I have a whole section on the server, which is my own cloud. So instead of storing client files on Apple or Microsoft OneDrive or anything like that, it stays on my internal server for privacy of my client files. Then the client side for my CRM, like I said previously, I use Follow Up Boss, which was game changing. But Follow Up Boss, as powerful as it is, unless you have systems and structure within it, it doesn't even come close to meeting its full potential. So I came to you, and you built out that structure. The other systems I use is BombBomb, which I use for doing a CMA. So if a client contacts me and wants to know the value of her home, but it's over email communication and so on, then I'll do a CMA for them, but I want to make it a little more personal and show them the smoke and mirrors behind the curtain. So I'll literally do a record screen as I'm building the CMA and talk to them about how it all works so they understand. That's a huge tool. I use Curb Hero, and Curb Hero has been awesome for my open houses. I have a laptop that sits there, and somebody coming in, instead of signing a piece of paper, they're going to tap a screen. They're going to say, I am pre-approved. I'm not pre-approved. I'm a realtor. I'm not a realtor. Why are you here? Do you need assistance with financing? Then I can ping them over to it does all of that for me. And it then takes them, puts them directly into my CRM. What else do I use? Make.com. I'm building automations within that to do my posts, which I post through a system called HeroPost.
Yes, yeah, we were just talking
There's
about
so
that
many
before.
different tools out there. It's trying to find the ones that work for the individual. And here in Manitoba, we have it's a negative in my opinion. It's called non-reciprocity on the MLS. So the systems that are commonly used in other provinces or in the US, like Yolopo and all these other systems, don't function here because they can't scrape that data off our MLS in any way, shape, or form. The board is currently working to have that changed. And then finally, I use a system called StreetText. And StreetText has turned out to be absolutely fantastic. It's a tool I use online to create advertising and have it published directly into my metaverse. So the ads can actually have more than a picture. It's forms in the background and interactions with Follow-Up Boss.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. So how did you decide Follow Boss to be your CRM?
A lot of research. The big thing for me was finding one that was functional within the regulations in Canada and in Manitoba, because each province has unique regulations. Finding one that was scalable for me and one that I could actually have some control over. So doing a lot of research, asked AI a lot of questions. I use AI a lot in my business, and I find it's probably a better search tool than Google or any of the others now. And you can really refine parameters of, well, this is what I'm looking for. What are the options? And Follow up boss won every time.
That's awesome. So earlier you mentioned that between the time that you started real estate and then 3 years later to today, you've implemented a lot of systems and structure. What does that mean to you, systems and structure?
So when I got in, I was having a bunch of binders, like cover the client's name, right? A binder like that where I keep track of my clients and lots of papers, and I still do that. I still have my paper copies, like we all do. But that was the extent of what I did, and I try and put signs up on the military base here. I never had any real structure to keep track of the flow. So if I contacted somebody, I'd make a little note on their file, and then I'd forget about it. So now by going into systems and structure, I have, okay, client A, I'm going to contact today because they've shown up in my system. I'm going to have a phone call with them. Based on the phone call, I'm going to make notes, and I'm going to select the category that they're in. Are they a 1 to 3 month? Or are they a 3 to 6? Are they 6 plus? Are they a buyer? Are they a seller? Are they both? And based on that, it'll automatically prompt me to reach back to them in a day, in a week, bi-weekly, all depending on what stage they're at and what the temperature is.
That's great. So I know that um, you utilize technology a lot more than the average agent. You mentioned you used AI. You do a lot of research on your own. You're really tech savvy. You figured out Follow Up Boss. You use StreetText, BombBomb, Curb Hero. You mentioned HeroPost. You mentioned Make. So why hire outside help to set up Follow Up Boss?
Because I know my limitations. Um, the reality is, I could have sat there and fumbled along in AI and tried to create a workflow, but it's not going to be refined to the point that AI can only do so much, right? It's not personable. And having that personal touch in messaging is important. AI can't necessarily convey that. So reaching out for help was trying to find somebody or some business that would assist me with that. And again, me with my research, I researched beyond belief, and everything came back to KTS.
How did you find out about Key Technology?
In the Follow Up Boss community on Facebook.
And then whenever you were doing your research, how did it keep coming back to Key Technology?
I asked a lot of questions of other people within the community, a lot of private messages, uh, reading all the reviews, and Lord knows there's a lot of them. And nobody had anything bad to say about you. I understand why now, but you know, so it came down to that point of, well, how fast can we get this going? What's the price? And that's when I reached out to you.
That's great to hear. So I know we're only, what, less than a month and a half, maybe a month and a half in, but going from what your follow-up boss was to a month and a half later, since implementing and activating everything, what has that transition look like?
Huge. So I actually signed up for Follow Up Boss in December of last year. So I haven't had Follow Up Boss that long. In my first few months of using it, I put all my clients in there, I put all my contacts in there, and I never really had any follow through or follow up beyond, well, let's scroll through and see who I should contact today. I don't know what stage they're at or anything. But going into that transition to the KTS build out, I have a cheat sheet that I follow religiously. I start my day by, first of all, checking on my current clients. They're number one, my priority. Going into new leads. So who's reached out through all my systems in the last 24 hours. And I ping them, and I usually cold call them right away, have a conversation, have a discussion, see if there's anything I can do to help them. Then I go into my stage 3, 4, 5, so my weekly, my bi-weekly, my back to website. And these are all the stages that you built out. It keeps me on point, it keeps me focused, and it makes sure that I have those touchbacks to the clients on the right intervals to keep engaged.
That's great. I have some stats to share. I don't know if you ever look in the reporting section in Follow Up Boss, but we just compared the month of March to the month of February after activating, your Follow Up Boss account. The calls that you put in logged in Follow Up Boss went up 180%, just 1 month compared to the previous. Yep. The emails went up 700%. Texts went up 300%. I'm not making these numbers up. The appointments set went up 22%, and overall, the average call attempts made per lead went up 59%. That
Yep.
is incredible.
And the number that's not on there is I have 2 deals specifically because of the Follow Up Boss and your integrations. So that right there, 2 deals in a month and a bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm going a little off topic here, but you shared that you use AI a lot in your business. I know you mentioned you use it for research and things like that. How else are you using artificial intelligence to help support your business?
Oh, probably one of the biggest things is keeping track of client flows in correlation with Follow Up Boss. Right? I use the notes section extensively on my clients. My emails, right? I'm not exactly the most verbose person when it comes to how I create emails. That's, again, why your system is so fantastic. So when I have to do reach backs to a client via email, I like to have it polished. So I'll put in my key points and I'll have AI generate the email for me. I'll cut and paste it in after I refine it and send it off. It's something I do every single day. I've actually gone in, most people may not know this, but within ChatGPT, you can create your own specific tailored GPT, your own AI workflow. And I've done that to the point where it knows exactly how to do specific functions and tasks based on demographics, location, current laws in the province, everything, and branding. So I use that to assist me with my CMAs, and it's become very effective.
That's really cool. Yeah, I use AI all the time to help me too with refining my communication, with helping me draft, I don't know, even HR related things now that I have staff. It's a wide range of things helping me with my social media marketing. Like you mentioned, you're using it for social media marketing. You planned out an entire year's worth of social media, which is incredible. So there's so many use cases with AI. Um, you don't have to share if you're not open to it, but I am curious if you'd be open to sharing the 2 clients that you mentioned that you either are currently working with or maybe you've closed at this point. Do you remember the circumstances that led to them becoming clients? Was it the fact that they were showing up on lists to prompt you to call? Was it the a combination of things that happened that led to them becoming a client? Do you remember if it was like automations that were happening?
So without getting into too many specifics, both clients came into my system through StreetText ads. The ad I was running was a valuation ad. So click here to find out the value of your home type thing. When they click, of course, they fill out the form of name, email, phone number, any particulars about their home, how many square feet, how many bed, bath, and then how soon are you looking to sell? So these two came in through that system. Now, when I first started using StreetText, you weren't part of my workflow at all. So a lot of people just kind of get lost or stuck in ether. And these were some of the first ones since having the actual KTS flow put in. So right away, they're getting the follow-up emails. Right away, I'm getting them put into my workflow, and I'm following up with phone calls and phone calls and phone calls. It was that repetition and that constant contact that kept the engagement going to the point where they said, all right, come on out, do evaluation. And I did that on both of them. It wasn't just a virtual evaluation. It was come to our house, do a walkthrough, and I went there with the contracts already prepped, and I left with contracts signed. Both of those are listed. Yeah, it's definitely been a huge change in how it works.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing those stories. I appreciate it. And thank you for your time today, Mark, for sharing all of your real estate journeys and being such an open book with how you're utilizing not only Follow Boss, but all of the different technologies you're implementing in your business. You didn't have to be that open and generous with your knowledge, and doing all those little tidbits there of nuggets. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for your time. And yeah, just thank you for everything.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you and your team put in. It has, without a doubt, changed my business.